Outlaw Macho Drive-In.
Welcome to the Outlaw Mud Show Drive-In. My name is Joe Connor. With me is Mohammed Fabi.
You know what, Joe? I was gonna go into hello everyone and everything, but I'm just too damn excited. Did you know the Undertaker is going into the Hall of Fame this year?
This year,
This year, like a couple of weeks.
2022.
Yeah, like a couple of weeks from now, well, maybe 3 weeks or something. The Undertaker is gonna be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
What's in 3 weeks?
The Undertaker getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. I just said it. You know,
Yes, but like, what's important about that weekend? Like, is it like like
I don't know. I
Madison
guess
Square Garden show backlash?
no, that's gonna be in Dallas. I guess it's because they're close to his home and everything. And then they decided since he's going into the Hall of Fame this year, let's make
Gotcha.
let's put on a WrestleMania the day after. So,
Oh,
yeah,
WrestleMania is
so
happening.
so they're gonna attach the WrestleMania to the Hall of Fame induction of the Undertaker. Yeah, okay. It's pretty good.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, because originally they were just gonna do WrestleMania in May at the Performance Center.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they were even gonna put in air conditioning this time instead of ceiling fan. But
Oh,
which, by the way, is
that's
that by
smart.
the way, did they get rid of that ceiling fan because it's not in the Capitol Wrestling Center? Is it still
I
called the
haven't seen
Capitol?
it for a
Is it
while.
still called the Capitol Wrestling Center, by the way, since it's 2.0ish?
You know what? They haven't really said honestly
I think I
whether
I think I think it faded away. The name just
I think it kind of did. Which that's one thing to speak of. So Fickle fans. So
yeah.
back in September, let's just first say that you and I are we know how to criticize NXT 2.0, but we criticize Raw, SmackDown,
We
Dynamite,
criticize everyone.
everything.
Yeah,
Yes, but we also know how
it's
to praise. We don't bash. We just more criticize.
yeah,
Like
exactly. If, we're
on
you and I are vocal about what we don't like. I think that's
yes,
the it's we
and
don't hate to hate. It's just
and like on like Facebook groups that we're in, we don't really post things about things that we actually hate. Like we're not like, oh, blah 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 is so awful or whatever. Um,
or screw the Von Erichs.
we
They're boring. We don't.
yes, we'll joke about things on posts, but we won't be like, um, you know,
We don't do malicious posts. I guess that's the
yes,
best way
yes,
to do it. We don't just
and
hate it.
so like our criticism is more in other posts or just in chats and everything. But since NXT 2.0, people were saying like they miss black and gold, they miss having stars, quote unquote. Um, and during NXT Black and Gold, one star that many people online wanted to see in NXT was Dolph Ziggler.
Oh yeah,
You got your
yes. Oh,
wish. Dolph Ziggler is finally in NXT. Dolph Ziggler won the NXT championship. Point two, people have been saying for years that they need Dolph to win a singles title again. Dolph needs to win a singles title. Dolph needs to be main eventing a show, which is another reason that why they wanted him in NXT.
yeah.
Dolph Ziggler won the NXT championship this past week. And since then, those same fans are now bashing
Everyone
the
is
show.
bashing the show because now all of a sudden they're like, oh, 41-year-old Dolph Ziggler is winning the title for the young guy from the young guys and everything.
Yes.
Uh, I mean, didn't you guys not like Braun Breaker as champion? It's
Yeah, exactly.
it's
Yeah.
it's make up
Which,
your
by
mind.
the way, I I was gonna say like had he actually won that match, I was gonna say, you know, Braun had a pretty decent reign if he had won because he won the title in January. Back in February, he beat Santos. I was gonna be like if he defeated Dolph and
Dolph Ziggler and champ
Ciampa
again. It's
in
gonna be
March, it would have been huge. But you know, he
eh,
had a decent reign, and then Ziggler wins the title. And here's the thing: even though this past week's 2.0, really only had 2 decent segments, which was the opening match and the final match. Those 2 segments were awesome, and Dolph Ziggler in that final segment, the main event, he's rejuvenated, and
He is.
so is
He
Bobby
feels.
Roode.
Yeah, Bobby Roode. Even though Bobby Roode is like the third wheel on this whole story, but he still feels like the
When
Bobby. It's you
a
remember when
week
he showed up as
earlier,
the yeah, when he showed up as the cameraman 2 weeks
yes,
was it?
2
And
weeks
you and I
earlier,
both were like, whoa, holy shit, where has this
yeah.
Bobby Roode been? And he was like, he was fired up. He was.
And then a week after that, when he came out to his glorious theme, which the fans just ate up, he completely feels at home. He looks happy. And so does Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler looks like this is the place that he wanted
Yeah,
to be
that that
years ago.
that pre-walkout promo that he did,
Mm-hmm.
that was pure 2012, 2013 Dolph Ziggler. That was like,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
when Dolph Ziggler was, this was the Dolph Ziggler that, held grabbed the mic after he beat Evan Bourne and said, follow that with anger. And everyone was like,
yes,
oh, okay,
yes.
there's something here. And need I say, since he, what's the
Since
year?
he returned heel, I say, since in
Since he turned
2016.
heel, let's say in 2016, he still had that fire when he was challenging AJ for the title. But he was more, white meat babyface than the angry, rebellious babyface that
Yes,
people got behind in 2013 or so.
yes,
So,
yes.
uh, yeah, it's great that they did this, and it's great for Braun Breaker to be challenging Ziggler because everyone, I mean, we're all assuming this is what's going to happen, and it's honestly
I'm assuming so.
and it's honestly the way you have to go with it. But it's again, people who are bashing this, you can't see. I mean, even if you don't want Ziggler as champion, can't you see the forest from the trees? There is an end game to this.
Yes, yes. And also, I didn't look it up. Um, is Stand and Deliver in an arena or is it in a small
It's
venue?
in the American Airlines arena.
Okay, okay.
It's not. I hate to say this, but it's not moving tickets as if well, let's say it was the same NXT as Black and Gold.
No, and you and I touched on this the other day, and when you go to WrestleMania weekend, there's Evolve. There used to be Evolve shows.
Please.
There's GCW shows. Um, there used to be Combat Zone. Ring of Honor.
Ring of
And
Honor when they used to be close to the place, not like
yes,
Well, actually,
and
they were always a couple of cities away, I guess.
um,
Well, no.
usually they were kind of close
Yeah, they were kind
generally.
of closer. They were like on the outskirts of the city, not in like a county over or
Yes,
so, like they did like.
the few I went to, they were always in the same city though.
Mm. No, I remember because the one I went to was in California. They were in Redwood.
Okay.
They weren't in San Jose. They were in Redwood City, which was like an hour drive away. I remember
Oh
this because
wow.
it was a bitch getting back from there to the NXT house show. The one that everyone
Yeah.
was raving about. And
Yeah. The
me,
Charlotte versus Sasha match.
yes, I missed that
Yes.
match because I was, watching Joe versus Jay Lethal. Sorry,
Ah,
Joe versus Jay Briscoe.
Briscoe. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Where I
yeah,
actually watched part of that match last night on Ring of Honor. They played the best of
for the Hall of Fame. Well, because
no
both of them
they were doing the best of Supercard of Honor last night.
makes sense.
Um, but they have all these niche shows in WrestleMania, and it's always that thing where even people who you go to these events and you'll hear people who actually say they don't watch WWE, blah blah blah. But then the past few years, those same fans would attend takeovers, and takeover was always the cool thing that WWE put on.
Takeover, yeah, because this is Takeover. I think was when NXT started to be self-sufficient. Because
Yes.
I'm gonna get back on this again because it goes back right back to the Ziggler thing. Because if you remember the original premise of the NXT back when it was not on the network,
Yes.
back
Yes.
when it was just the world's best kept secret, was
Yes.
that it was actually developmental, but they had main stars coming down doing programs with them, including Dolph Ziggler had
Yeah.
Rusev's first match during that show.
Oh yeah,
Chris Jericho breaking Bray Wyatt's nose on
the Usos.
The Usos and the Ascension had a feud. And this is and then NXT became self-sufficient enough that it didn't need any main stars on it, main
Yeah,
roster stars. And this is when NXT morphed into, what can we say? It's the
WWE's alternative.
WWE's and independent wrestling's illegitimate child, I guess. That's
Yes, yes, yes. The
it,
network era.
yeah, it was as if it was, what if indie wrestling was produced by the WWE? That's
Yes, the 2014 to 2019 era.
exactly.
Uh,
And
Post network, pre USA.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And this, but then again, when they hit a hard restart button on it, it's like a full reboot. So you're going from 2.0. So we still have to go through these phases again.
Hmm.
That's why you bring in Dolph Ziggler, because, like it or not, no, I don't care I don't care what he's doing on the main roster. He still is considered a mainstream name in professional wrestling, not a
Yes,
mainstream in
yes,
general, but he's still considered a mainstream name in professional wrestling. People who are not even following them are going to say, "Oh, Dolph Ziggler won a title on NXT.
yes.
Maybe I should go check this out."
Because
And
he would also get the superstar treatment in like AEW, where they would be like, "Oh yeah, this is a major star from another promotion," and then he would wind up, on Dark after a month, like Jay Lethal. But um, he has that
oh,
star
come
aura
on,
to him.
don't be ridiculous. Jay Lethal took much way less than a month, but
Yes, yes. Um, but Ziggler is that guy, and the fact that NXT is now looked at as by people as being WWE completely and no longer NXT, it's hurting them. And the same thing is, I always have to explain to people, like what you said, it's gone through a cycle. Because right now, 2.0 is reminiscent of 2012 to 2014 NXT.
yes.
Very reminiscent of it. And if you look at back then, they had a couple, guys from, ROH and stuff. Like they had, Seth Rollins, they had Sami Zayn. Um, but a lot of the guys were WWE bred. Um, uh, Rusev, The Ascension.
Hmm.
Um, so they had, when people say WWE doesn't make anybody, they have a great record of doing that.
I
Um,
mean,
Baron Corbin came from
I
NXT.
mean, come on. You want to tell me that John Moxley's a big star in AEW because of his CZW days?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And when people look at it that way, which is the whole fickle thing with wrestling fans, it's damaging for the product, because if the product starts being mocked, it's not going to be good years down the road for the fans, because they're going to be missing out on a lot of great stuff. It's the same fans that completely started mocking and hating Ring of Honor when the Elite left. Like I know people who legit despise people who talk about Ring of Honor, because they're just like, oh, there's no reason to watch Ring of Honor because the Young Bucks and Cody left it and everything. It's like, did you not watch Ring of Honor before the Young
I
Bucks and
mean,
Cody?
yeah.
It's like it happened.
Here's the thing.
Um,
Here's the thing. It's like, wrestling fans always say there's nothing new being happened. We're tired of the same old show. They want change, but they don't want big change. It's like when something
yes,
changes like dramatically, it's no, this is not what I want. Dude, didn't you just say you want this to change?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And here's the problem. It's people who bash the Dolph Ziggler thing. I'm pretty sure, like most of the people that I know, I'm pretty sure none of these guys are following NXT 2.0 or NXT for that. It's
No,
like,
no.
yeah,
I
why would 40-year-old Dolph Ziggler, dude, you're not even watching this show. What do you care?
I
Just
it's another pet peeve of mine. I see people online who on Facebook who I know for a fact do not watch Raw or SmackDown. People don't even watch Dynamite. but they praise every single thing that AEW does, and they bash every single thing that WWE does. And I'll call them out. I'll be like, you don't even watch
Yeah.
either show. How do you know? It's like, if I'm under the rule, if I don't want to watch something, I'm not going to talk about it. Like,
That's exactly it. Like you can
if,
say, I think so and so about what I heard of, or but
yes,
you can't just say I hate this or that. What are they doing? Why do you care?
yeah, yeah. It's there's no reason, and it's like, if right now, I'll just be honest. The only thing that's keeping me, I almost gave up on watching MLW, but I'm got invested into the Hammerstone versus Holiday angle,
Yeah.
so I just kept I keep it on, and then whenever they pop on screen, I turn the volume on for it. Otherwise, I just kind of have it playing while I'm watching Impact. Um,
It's a good way to do it.
but
It's
it's
yeah.
the thing where if I gave up on watching MLW, I wouldn't go onto Facebook and start posting all these anti MLW messages. I would just be like, oh, I just don't watch the show. If somebody else posted something, I would comment, but I'm not going to go out of my way to be like, like, I know you haven't watched MLW for a while, but you don't go out of your way to
I don't go
every
into
week
trash
post
MLW.
anti Von Erich stuff or anything. Yeah, we just
Yeah.
don't like the Von Erich. We're not going to post about it weekly.
It's like first of all, tip my hat off to you because it's for me. I found this, and maybe it's because I'm going older. I'm getting up there in years. I mean, I'm hitting the big 38 this year,
Yes,
and I'm gonna be an old. But if something is not holding my attention, I'm just not watching. That's it.
yeah. That's why I
It's
usually am with like a lot of TV shows and stuff. But like
eh,
MLW, I wanted to succeed. Um,
yeah, same thing for me. And I get that like brand loyalty. I'm always gonna love MLW. I think even if MLW turns out to be real bad, but uh, like
Still, the whole thing about your love of professional wrestling outweighs everything else. Where like Impact, I've given up on Impact like 3 times in the past 10 years.
so
Um,
3 times so far. Just
yes, yes. And currently, right now, it's my second favorite thing to watch every week after NXT UK. And it's like I didn't think that I would say that again. It's the first time since 2009, 2000, I'd say about since like 2009, 2010, that it's been one of my favorite shows of the week. And that's the thing. It's like, even on the times where I didn't watch Impact, I still kind of kept tabs by like reading results or something. Um, but I never went on my way to completely bash Impact because at my core, I still wanted to see it succeed. So when people completely bash NXT, it's like you're not wanting wrestling to succeed. You're wanting something to fail, and it's the same people. And I see this a lot. People who wish death upon Vince McMahon, and people who think that Vince is the worst thing ever. It's like, yes, he has done some fucking bad
But
decisions,
but let's be
and
honest, you wouldn't be watching wrestling right now, talking online about how you love the wrestling and WWE's doing this and Ring of Honor is the greatest thing ever or AEW is
Mhm.
the greatest thing ever if it wasn't for Vince McMahon.
An argument could be made if they were
Uh,
just strictly pro Nitro back in the Monday Night War era, but
but come on,
yeah, yeah,
you think without Vince McMahon making the WWE as big as it was, and then
no,
Ted Turner buying WCW,
no.
it all goes back to Vince McMahon, even if
It
you're
goes back to, if we go back to pre our generation, let's say people who were like born in the late 70s.
yeah. Let's just talk
It
about
goes
like
back to wrestle.
let's just talk about the type of people that our friend Walter pretends to be one of. Let's
Yes, it goes back to WrestleMania,
yeah.
because if it wasn't for Hogan and WrestleMania, nobody be watching wrestling right now.
It would have died.
Um,
Honestly,
and it's always odd when Walter talks about how when he was like 7 or 8, how 8 it was 8 years old. I want to say when how I guess he was born 81, so he would have been about 7 or 8 when I can't remember if it was WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 5. How he decided to go to NWA Jim Crockett Promotions instead because he put how much he hated WWF at the time. It's like, dude, you were not a complete smart mark back when you were
I mean,
in
yeah, he's getting, yeah.
1987,
Walter
88.
talks about this like he's like, dude, you're barely older than me. You're not like 70 already. And even then,
Yeah,
there was no smart
yeah.
marks. It's like
And
no one in those territories. I don't think people were like, oh, this is so much better than what
yes,
Hogan and
yeah.
Macho Man are doing. It's not,
The other
it,
thing with that is like when they talk about how I've seen him and I've seen a couple others in the Cult of Cornette group say this, where they talk about how Ricky Morton was a bigger draw than
oh
Hulk
yeah,
Hogan ever was. It's like,
yeah.
dude,
And
no,
it's weird because it
just
comes from the
stop.
cult of Cornette because I don't think Jim Cornette subscribes to that thinking. No.
It does, yeah.
I mean,
And
he would say he's a bigger wrestler, he's a better wrestler. What would he say? The Rock and Roll Express are a bigger draw than Hulk Hogan.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call him I honestly wouldn't call him a draw. Like maybe for tag team wrestling, but it's like I honestly don't see the draw aspect with
you
them.
want to tell me if the NWO was running a show at the same night in the same city as a Hulk Hogan headlined the WWF Championship, and they put Ricky Morton in the main event. They're gonna outdraw the WWF.
If you ask Walter, he will say if it's in the South, they will reject the cartoony WWF because they watch sports centric, gritty Southern wrestling. Um,
They
but
might
the thing
reject. I
is,
mean, they might reject it out of brand loyalty. Now, come to think of it.
but at the
But let's
same
say
time,
neutral. Let's say neutral grounds. Let's say what's on the center?
Midwest,
Yeah, Midwest. Let's say Chicago.
yeah, yeah, Chicago, WWF.
Yeah,
Um, and then if you even fast forward to like 1992, 93, it's no competition. Even though wrestling was on a decline at the time, if they were both running the same place, whole territory days were dead at that point. And WWF, if they were running a show with like Yokozuna, Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, The Undertaker, and the other show wasn't even say like Flair and Sting were like the only two headliners, and everyone else was like Barry Windham, Rock and Roll Express, etc. People would choose the WWF.
exactly. Which brings us back full circle to this. So, if you come out here and you say Vince McMahon has ruined wrestling, dude, you're watching wrestling because Vince McMahon made wrestling what it
Mm-hmm.
is today.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
think you think TNA, Ring of Honor, or even AEW would exist if the WWF did not kick down that door of wrestling into the mainstream?
No,
It's
no,
they wouldn't even think about making this company.
yeah. And
And
here's the other
even if they
thing
existed,
is
they'd be regional independent wrestling promotions like back in the day. They would be the USWA or
yes. I I haven't watched the Pat McAfee interview yet.
it
Um,
is. I was gonna segue into that. It is because anyone who thinks that Vince McMahon is now senile because of maybe rightfully so because of the segments we see him in on Raw now, but if you like listen to that interview, the man still has all his wits about him.
oh yeah,
He's still Vince McMahon. It's like it's not even like it's what can I say? And he still talks like a business. He still talks like a business. It's like this is a show. Now, granted, now I've heard this complaint from the Cornet, and granted that Pat McAfee did not serve him any hardballs.
sure.
Everything was pretty much softballs all the way. But it's and I don't think it's even that Vince McMahon told him to go easy on thing. I think just Pat McAfee was just in awe of Vince McMahon being there, and
Probably yeah, yeah,
he was just I'm getting to chat with the boss, so this is a great thing to do.
yeah.
And but The guy did not trash competition. It's like he doesn't even recognize that there is. The guy does not. Um, he's not out of touch. Uh, it's like he was talking about himself. It's weird because I think everyone expected Vince McMahon to be Mr. McMahon, not actual Vince
Sure.
McMahon. And
And that makes me think of two things because one, and I've said this to people in the past. I don't think a lot of the decisions are. I know Vince has final call on things, but I think it goes back to like what CM Punk said during the pipe bomb, that Vince surrounds himself with these yes men, and he actually listens to these yes men who pitch out these ideas. I think a
hmm
lot of the terrible stuff does come from like Bruce Pritchard. It does come from Nick Khan. I think Vince is just more focused on the huge global aspect with how big wrestling is, which fans don't realize. WWE is a global company that is publicly traded, and of course they're going to have you know fundraisers for charities. They're going to have things for kids. They're going to have glitzy and glamour. WWE is a publicly traded national company that is like a Walt Disney. It is like you know it's a major promotion, and people don't get that. The other thing is, I saw somebody talk about how didn't trash anybody, and they said, well, Vince McMahon is the one that complete, and Walter's actually said this in the past also. Vince McMahon is the one that killed the wrestling industry by putting all his competition out of business by going national. He saved professional wrestling because back in the day before I was even watching wrestling, like in my area, I'm not sure about. I'm actually even more curious about your area. My area had AWA that passed through. Did you guys even have like a territory? Or was wrestling
no,
pretty much non-existent?
no, there is a territory. There is a couple of territories now,
Okay,
but those would not exist
that
if
happened.
yeah, exactly. There was no.
Yes,
There
it
is
comes around in full
Yeah,
circle.
there is Qatar Pro Wrestling which books these pretty big stars like Sting, Booker T, other stars, enforcers, and they even have Killer Cross coming up on the next
Okay,
Alberto El Patron coming up on their next show. There is a very small regional promotion called Dubai Pro Wrestling. I haven't even seen it in action. I just see posted online, and it's like a pro wrestling school slash federation, but no, there is no Toritaro professional wrestling in the Middle East.
and here's the thing with that is, for you, your fandom might not have been as strong because if it wasn't a global promotion, who knows what you would have
I
been watching.
I would not have.
Um,
Honestly, I would be in a much better situation financially if it was. But
and like for me, I watched AWA VHSs growing up, but the thing is, I know damn well if all I had was AWA growing up and no like
you would not.
WWF, or I probably would have just been like, you know, 13 years old or something, like I'm done watching wrestling. I'm done with it. Um,
It's the exact
when
thing.
people,
It's because when we were children, like the first time you watch pro wrestling, it's pure curiosity of like, what is this wondrous thing that looks like all those boxing movies or come to like
and
it's
you
like real
you
type.
and I were essentially hooked by the same three guys. Like you and I were hooked by like Taker, Michaels, and Brett. Like those
Exactly.
are basically like
Those
the
are
triad that
those
basically hooked both you and I.
Yeah, which explains why in most cases you and I are pretty much the same type of fan. But it's yeah, exactly. It's the idea of like if you didn't have how the WWF presented pro wrestling, I'm pretty sure my curiosity would have died down eventually.
Same.
It's like, yeah, these guys are fighting because this guy wants to beat this guy. Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. I've seen Rocky 3. I don't care what it is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
and and but when you see the way the WWF produced their shows, the way again, the story of like the Undertaker rising up from the dead and grabbing Diesel by the throat,
Yeah.
and how that hooked me into it, how that
Yes.
essentially changed wrestling from like a hobby to an obsession for me. Yeah. So you can't um you can't tell me that like three-quarters of the people that you love now that are going against the grain of that are fighting the mighty tyrants were actually
Hmm.
inspired by this tyrant's product. It's
Yes. And that's the other thing is like you hear, with the exception of like Eddie Kingston, whenever you hear like an AEW guy talk about their love of professional wrestling, it's always from like the New Generation era, the Attitude era, the Ruthless Aggression era. It's always that time period that they speak of.
yeah,
Um, Kenny Omega on like being the elite, like um, kind of topical because of Scott Hall, which thoughts and prayers out to Scott Hall. But
yes,
when being the elite, Kenny Omega did that one thing where he would enter a room for a while where he was playing the Razor Ramon music, and then he would kind of Razor Ramon walk into a room. You're gonna tell me that like, oh yeah, I grew up watching Razor Ramon and WWF, but I'm so anti WWE now that I'm gonna hate the entire history. And that's the other.
thank you for joining us on the Outlaw Macho Drive-In. If you like that video, please click like and subscribe to our channel for more content from the Drive-In. For full episodes of our podcast, you may look us up on Anchor, Spotify, or wherever your favorite podcasts are available. Just search for Outlaw Macho Drive-In. And if it's not too much trouble, would you help us out here? Spread the word, share. We would really appreciate it. Thank you. We love you. Bye.